Miss Wen, congratulations on passing our online interview. The offer has been sent to your email. We require you to report to London for onboarding within 2 weeks. Do you have any questions? On the other end of the line, the man speaking fluent English from across the ocean received Wen Tingwen's immediate and resolute agreement. No problem, I'll be there on time. Just as the call ended, the door handle turned, and Shunchalin walked in, seeing Wen Tingwen. He smoothly handed her a paper bag. I had an urgent matter at the law firm yesterday and couldn't celebrate New Year's Eve with you. Please don't be angry, he spoke sincerely, and when Tingwen didn't press further, she took the bag and glanced inside. A solitary pink crystal bracelet lay at the bottom of the paper bag. So careless that he couldn't even bother to wrap the bracelet properly. The bracelet was expensive, but its value didn't lie in itself. It was the matching pink crystal necklace that was truly costly. The bracelet was merely a freebie included with the necklace. The bracelet is here, which means Shunchalin bought the necklace, yet he chose to give the free gift to me, if it weren't for the photos Xu Jiatong sent her yesterday, featuring a strikingly eye-catching pink crystal necklace in both texture and size. Wen Tingwen might never have guessed that her boyfriend of 5 years would choose to give the genuine item to someone else while presenting his girlfriend with the freebie, just like how he excused himself from spending New Year's Eve with her, claiming work at the law firm, only to accompany Xu Jiatong instead. But in the end, she didn't expose Shunchalin. After saying thank you, she quietly accepted the gift, seeing Wen Tingwen accept the gift without any further action. Shunchalin frowned and stopped her just as she was about to return to her room. Where's mine? Suddenly stopped. When Tingwen was still puzzled, she looked at Shunchalin blocking her way, unsure of what he was doing. What do you mean, yours? You forgot. Wasn't it you who made the agreement that we'd exchange gifts every New Year's Eve, as a sign that we keep each other in our hearts? Shunchalin's expression darkened, never expecting that while he had kept the promise, it was she who had forgotten it. Hearing this, Wen Tingwen suddenly realized and said nonchalantly, after being together for so many years, we're practically an old married couple. There's no need for such formalities anymore. Shunchalin instinctively wanted to retort but suddenly found the words oddly familiar. The next moment, he remembered, last New Year's Eve, when Tingwen had enthusiastically prepared a gift for him, but he had forgotten their agreement, when she came to exchange gifts. His hands were empty, her eyes filled with disappointment as she asked why he could forget even a promised arrangement. What had he answered back then? He said, after being together for so many years, we're practically an old married couple, it's all just formalities, forgetting is forgetting. The excuse he once used was now being turned back on him. Shunchalin finally understood how Wen Tingwen must have felt when she heard those words back then. For a moment, he was at a loss for words and could only awkwardly force a change of subject. He glanced around but couldn't find a good segue, so he ended up steering the conversation back to himself. I'm hungry. His gaze closely followed Wen Tingwen's figure as she spoke, uttering only a single word, oh, just an oh. Shunchalin's face was full of astonishment, never expecting her reaction to be so indifferent, even bordering on complete disregard. Feigning confusion, she asked, what else? Do you need me to transfer money for your meal? That's not what I meant. He spoke halfway, but his voice gradually weakened. When Tingwen looked at him, amusement in her eyes, of course, she knew what he wanted to say. In the past, Shunchalin was picky about food, and coupled with the busy schedule of his legal profession, his eating habits were very irregular. So whenever he said he was hungry, even if it was 3 a.m., Wen Tingwen would still get up to cook for him. But now, she wouldn't care whether he had a stomachache or not. If you have money, then go eat by yourself. I have a gathering to attend later and need to head out. With that, she turned around to go back to her room and change clothes, but before she could take 2 steps, Shunchalin grabbed her hand. Wen Wen turned back and once again met his gloomy face. You're going out this late. What are you going out for? Wen Tingwen didn't understand why he was suddenly angry. She tried to free her wrist with force but failed, only causing him to unconsciously tighten his grip. Feeling the pain at her wrist, she frowned and couldn't help but let out a soft hiss. Let go, it's just an ordinary gathering. Still without much explanation, it made Shancheline momentarily hard to accept. But you've never been like this before. Yes, she would never abandon him for other matters. If it were the Wen Tingwen of the past, she would have immediately headed to the kitchen upon hearing Shancheline say he was hungry, with no thought of running out. But now, she couldn't be bothered with such things, especially since she had already decided to leave him. Chapter 2. That night, when Tingwen was truly acting out of character, only one last guess remained in his mind. Are you still angry? Really, I'm not. When Tingwen remained calm, her voice even carrying a hint of helplessness. Seeing that her expression didn't seem fake, Shancheline still felt somewhat uneasy. Glancing at the time on his watch, he finally took a step back voluntarily. It's too late now. It's not safe for you to go out alone. Let me go with you, as he also headed toward the entrance. When Tingwen's impatient voice suddenly rang out from behind, "No need, I'm meeting up with friends, and bringing you along would be inconvenient." His movements froze as her words fell, surprise flashing in his eyes. He hadn't expected her to refuse. After all, in the early years of their relationship, when Tingwen had repeatedly asked to introduce him to her friends, only to be turned down each time with the excuse of his busy work schedule, now that he was the one offering, she refused. He was about to speak. But when Tingwen had already walked past him and out the door, the gathering was set at a bar. As soon as when Tingwen entered, the few people already in the private room couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "What a rare guest! What brings Miss Wen here today? I thought you'd make up another excuse to skip out at the last minute again." "Exactly. Every time we invite you, you say you're busy. We were starting to think you'd really choose a man over us, your friends." Listening to their teasing, when Tingwen felt a bit embarrassed and gave a self-deprecating smile, "I was foolish back then. Distancing myself from friends and losing my sense of self for a man who didn't love me." She sat down among the crowd, casually picked up the wine on the table and took a sip. The aroma of the wine lingered between her lips and teeth, and a hint of nostalgia flashed in her eyes. Actually, she used to love drinking too, but she quit because Shancheline didn't like it. Shancheline always thought they had met through a blind date, but that wasn't the case. When Tingwen first met him at her parents' funeral, that year, she was only 10 years old. Yet she personally arranged her parents' funeral. All the relatives told her not to be sad and to focus on hosting the guests first. But when she personally pushed the two bodies to the crematorium, she could no longer hold back and ran out, hiding in a corner to cry. At that moment, it was Shancheline who found her. He was the son brought over by her mother's best friend. Seeing her crying so sadly, he didn't say anything, just sat beside her and instead reached out to hand her a piece of candy. "Want some candy?" She sniffled and reached out to take the candy he offered. Unwrapping it, the sweetness of the milk candy melted in her mouth, but her tears still couldn't stop falling in large drops. "I don't have a mom or dad anymore. I miss them so much." Though he was only about 10 years old himself, he carried an air of maturity beyond his years. He raised his hand and gently patted her hair. "Don't be afraid, they're still here. It's just that when you're at school, they're at work. When you're home for dinner, they're away on a business trip. When you go looking for them, they've just returned home. They'll always be there. But from now on, you'll just keep missing each other. But eventually, you'll meet again." Hearing these words, she finally raised her eyes and stared at him in a daze. In the days that followed, when Tingwen relied on this very sentence to get through the long nights without her parents, she convinced herself that they were still there, just passing by each other every time. She told herself that after all these years, they would meet again. For a long time afterward, when Tingwen still hadn't forgotten his words, nor had she forgotten him, even if all she knew about him was just the name Shancheline. Many years later, when she had grown up, Mrs. Shan arranged for her to have a blind date with Shancheline. Chapter 3. From the very beginning, Mrs. Shan told her that her son was perfect in every way, except that he was born with a cold temperament. If they were to be together, it might take a long time to warm his heart, but she didn't mind. Because she had seen his warm side, she was willing to go to great lengths to warm him up. For 5 years of their relationship, when Tingwen always put him at the center of everything, his suits couldn't be washed in water, so the first thing she did after work every day was to take his clothes to the dry cleaner. He casually mentioned wanting to come home to hot meals every day, so she quit her beloved job as a jewelry designer, found a low-paying but less demanding clerical job near his company, and moved into his home. He didn't like the smell of alcohol, so she quit drinking altogether and even drifted apart from her old friends as a result. After her parents passed away, she felt like she had no home, just a floating weed, drifting wherever the current took her. But after being with Shanchalene, she instinctively felt she had someone to rely on, believing that wherever Shanchalene was, her home would be there, so she did everything she could to take care of him. Fortunately, her efforts were not entirely in vain. Later, he became less distant toward her and no longer refused her requests, such as the New Year's gift exchange agreement. But just when she thought everything was gradually improving, another girl appeared in their lives. Her name was Xu Jiatong, a college classmate of his. He had a cleanliness obsession and never allowed her to eat in the car. Wen Tingwen knew he disliked it and never dared to cross that line. Yet later, she saw Xu Jiatong eating biscuits in his car, and he didn't say a word to stop her. When she successfully made her first dessert, she eagerly brought it to share her joy with him, but he frowned and pushed it away, saying he didn't like sweets. Yet later, when they dined with Xu Jiatong and she pushed the dessert she disliked onto his plate, he accepted it willingly. Wen Tingwen's friends all enjoyed drinking, and their favorite pastime was visiting bars for a drink. When he found out, he frowned and told her to cut ties with those friends, saying he disliked noise. But when Xu Jiatong mentioned going to a bar, his first reaction wasn't refusal, it was to accompany her. Countless incidents like these piled up. Every time Wen Tingwen questioned him, he would only say they were just friends now and told her not to make a fuss. But now, looking back, it all boils down to one simple truth: he just didn't love her enough. After pouring out everything, Wen Tingwen felt as if a heavy stone had been lifted from her heart, finally allowing her to breathe freely. Yet, the rest of her friends fell into silence. After a long pause, someone finally broke the silence. "If he doesn't even like you, why did you stay by his side all this time?" Wen Tingwen turned to Nyan Jiaxiang, who had spoken, and shook her head with a faint smile. "I won't stay anymore. I've decided to break up with him and will be going abroad in half a month." When Wen Tingwen returned home, Shanchalene was still awake. As soon as she entered, he caught the strong smell of alcohol on her, and his brows instinctively furrowed. "Didn't I tell you I don't like the smell of alcohol? If you're jealous, just say so. Why drink yourself into this state?" She changed her shoes and walked straight to the bathroom, only stopping when she passed by him. "I drank because I was happy, not because of you." Shanchalene rubbed his temples, feeling somewhat unable to communicate with her at the moment. He didn't speak further but instead stepped forward to help when Tingwen returned to her room to rest. To his surprise, in the next second, Wen Tingwen directly avoided his outstretched hand. "Will you sleep in the master bedroom or the guest room?" Detecting the rejection in her words, his expression darkened with disbelief. "You want to sleep in separate rooms?" he asked. Wen Tingwen waved her hand dismissively. "Didn't you say you don't like the smell of alcohol? Then it's better to sleep in separate rooms." With that, she stopped paying him any attention and turned to return to the master bedroom. Only after she had finished washing up did she hear the sound of a door slamming from the guest bedroom. Shanchalene was angry. In the past, she would have been so flustered that she wouldn't know what to do, rushing to comfort him. But now, she no longer cared and simply went to sleep. The next day, when Tingwen left early in the morning to resign from the company, since it was straightforward, the handover was quick, and she returned home just before noon. As soon as she entered, she saw Shanchalene walking out with a cake in hand. When Tingwen's gaze fell on the cake, and she suddenly remembered, today was Xu Jiatong's birthday. Seeing her return, he didn't pause his steps or even glance at her before walking straight out the door. She didn't try to stop him either, because she knew this was the prelude to his silent treatment. In the 3 years since Xu Jiatong returned to China, they had countless arguments because of her. Every time they fought to the end, he would give her the cold shoulder for a while, and every time he started the silent treatment, she would immediately apologize and keep coaxing him until his anger subsided. But this time, she quickly averted her gaze and stopped caring about his mood. Chapter 4. After Shanchalene left, Wen Tingwen didn't linger either. She went straight back to her room and turned on her computer. She will be going to London in half a month. So she needs to rent a place first. She also looked up some local dishes and started practicing them at home. Living alone abroad in the future means she has to get used to it in advance. Lying back in bed, Wen Tingwen casually scrolled through her phone and noticed that Xu Jiatong had posted a WeChat Moments update half an hour ago. Thank you for being there at every important moment of my life. At the very bottom, there was also a group photo attached. In the picture, Shun Qilin sat beside Xu Jiatong, looking at her with a tenderness she had never seen before. Shun Qilin and all his friends liked this WeChat Moments post, with the first comment even being from Shun Qilin himself. I promised you this commitment, and I will never break it. His friends also left comments one after another, saying, we're all so happy to see you two together. A peaceful atmosphere in the comment section was shattered by the last remark, stop posting. Or Wen Tingwen will make a scene again when she sees it. Wen Tingwen did indeed make a scene initially. At that time, she didn't know that Xu Jiatong was Shun Qilin's first love. She simply thought they were genuinely good friends. So, when she noticed Shun Qilin's unusually attentive care for Xu Jiatong, she gently reminded him that since they were of the opposite sex, even as friends, they should maintain appropriate boundaries, though it was just a reasonable reminder. His expression darkened immediately. We're just friends, interacting normally, there's no need to avoid anything. Even his own brother said, don't be so stingy, depriving your boyfriend of his most basic right to make friends is too petty. Wen Tingwen didn't understand why. Just because she mentioned that Shun Qilin and Xu Jiatong should be mindful of boundaries, they both turned their criticism towards her, saying she was making a mountain out of a molehill. It wasn't until later that she accidentally found out Xu Jiatong wasn't just his friend, she was his unforgettable first love, whom he had been forced to separate from due to his mother's disapproval and who had gone abroad. Only after that did Shun Qilin agree to a blind date and start dating her. She finally learned the whole truth. No wonder Shun Qilin treated Xu Jiatong so differently, no wonder his friends never liked her, and even reacted so strongly when she wanted Shun Qilin to keep his distance from Xu Jiatong. It turned out that the person Shun Qilin truly loved, from beginning to end, was only Xu Jiatong. In the eyes of his friends, she was merely a thief who had stolen Xu Jiatong's place. So they believed Xu Jiatong was his destined match, that only by being with Xu Jiatong could Shun Qilin find happiness, pulling her thoughts back from the memories. Wen Tingwen did not confront Shun Qilin as they had suggested. Instead, she simply turned off her phone and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke again, it was already the middle of the night. She was shaken awake with force, and upon opening her eyes, she saw Shun Qilin's dark, gloomy face. She grabbed her phone from the bedside table, glanced at the time, and a wave of irritation surged within her. Wen Tingwen took a long, deep breath to suppress her impatience before raising her eyes to meet his gaze. What is it? She asked. Who would have thought that as soon as Shun Qilin spoke, his voice was icy cold, making his displeasure abundantly clear. Wen Tingwen, do you even remember that I'm your boyfriend? I came back so late. And you didn't even call me. My friends' girlfriends all know to call and check on them, urging them to come home. But you, not even a single text message. What exactly do you mean by this? Chapter 5. Wen Tingwen looked at Shun Qilin in confusion, not understanding what he was so angry about. What do you want me to ask when you're with Xu Jiatong and the others? Didn't you always complain that I was annoying for calling you during your gatherings with friends? That's why I stopped calling. And didn't you say you and Xu Jiatong were just friends, with nothing else going on? Her explanation was so reasonable that it left Shun Qilin momentarily speechless. He wanted to say that wasn't the case, that in the past, she wouldn't have just gone to sleep without a word of concern when he stayed out so late. Yet her reasoning made it impossible for him to voice this thought. He didn't understand why she reacted that way. But then he remembered the post Xu Jiatong had shared on her social media not long ago, and it finally dawned on him. You're upset because of Jiatong's post. His voice was firm, but she shook her head. I'm not upset. Shun Qilin breathed a sigh of relief, not taking Wen Wan's words to heart, thinking she was just being stubborn, and the explanation slipped out effortlessly. After all, I've known Jiatong for so many years, it's only natural to help her celebrate her birthday. As for the comments under that WeChat post, they were just joking around. You don't need to take them seriously." Drowsiness gradually crept back in. She didn't even listen carefully to his explanation and casually replied, "Millimeter, I know. You should go rest first. Everything I said is true. There's no need for you to be angry about this." Shunchalin detected the perfunctory tone in her voice and had already lost patience while explaining. When WN sighed, feeling helpless, she was extremely tired and really didn't want to keep arguing with him. "What do I need to do to make you believe I'm not angry?" She picked up her phone, directly found that particular social media post, and gave it a like right in front of Shunchalin. "Will you believe me now?" Shunchalin fell silent, staring at Wen WN as if trying to confirm from her expression whether she truly wasn't angry. After a long while, he gave in and sat down beside her, reaching out to wrap his arm around her waist. However, when WN quietly shifted a few inches away to the other side, a flicker of shock passed through Shunchalin's eyes, not expecting Wen WN to reject his closeness, but the immediate follow-up was the displeasure of being rejected. "Didn't you say you weren't angry anymore?" She closed her eyes, unwilling to look at him, yet gave him a reason he couldn't refuse. "I'm on my period today." He pressed his lips tightly together, and in the end, got up without a word, heading toward the door. Early the next morning, when Shunchalin came out, when Tingwen was already having breakfast, noticing there was no portion for him on the table, he asked, "Where's mine?" without turning her head. She finished her breakfast slowly before explaining, "I noticed you didn't eat much of the breakfast I prepared for you before, so I figured you didn't really like what I made. From now on, I won't make it anymore. If there's something you'd like to eat, you can go downstairs and buy it yourself." Shunchalin was taken aback. Never expecting this to be the reason, he had been feeling that when Tingwen was acting strangely lately but couldn't pinpoint why. In the end, he could only assume she was still upset about Xu Jiatong. When she spoke again, her tone softened slightly for once. "Didn't you always want to go to the amusement park before? I'll go with you today, so don't be angry anymore." Having explained countless times that she wasn't actually angry, when Tingwen no longer wanted to continue the explanation. After all, even if she said it, he would just stubbornly stick to his own opinion. As for the amusement park, the Wen Tingwen of the past had really wanted to go. She lost both parents at a young age, and no one ever took her to an amusement park. Later, when she was dating Shunchalin, she mentioned it many times and even invited him to go with her, but every time, he would say it was too childish, that such places were just for entertaining kids. He was too busy with work, had no time, and simply wasn't interested in amusement parks, so he always refused. Recalling the past, this time it was her turn to shake her head. "Forget it, it's just for entertaining kids. Let's not go." Chapter 6. The reason for rejection was still familiar to Shunchalin, but this time he didn't give up. It wasn't until when WN was finally worn down by his persistence that she reluctantly agreed. Since it wasn't a weekend, there weren't many cars on the road, the two drove smoothly without any obstructions and soon arrived at the amusement park, just as they bought tickets and entered. They ran into a group of very familiar faces. It's Xu Jiatong and Shunchalin's brothers. The boy walking at the front is named Song Taohao. As soon as he saw Shunchalin, he excitedly stepped forward to greet him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders and leading him ahead. "Since we've run into each other, let's hang out together. The more, the merrier." When WN lagged far behind, clearly out of place among the group ahead, she showed no reaction to Song Taohao's words. But Shunchalin instinctively glanced back at her. That group of people seemed to have just noticed her, offering insincere apologies with their words, yet still showing no intention of letting go of Shunchalin. Their attitude clearly conveyed, "If you're unhappy, you can just leave on your own." When Tingwen understood their implication but didn't get angry, instead, she smiled and said, "I'm fine with anything." After all, the idea of coming to the amusement park wasn't hers in the first place. With her consent, Shunchalin breathed a sigh of relief and accepted the proposal. The group wandered aimlessly, trying whatever seemed interesting, mild activities first, then naturally moving on to more thrilling ones. Throughout, he was surrounded by Xu Jiatong, and naturally, he shielded her the entire time. To an outsider, it might have seemed like they were the couple. Yet, the actual girlfriend, when WN, walked at the very back, never once reminding Shunchalin from start to finish. When they reached the rapid river ride attraction, Xu Jiatong suddenly got excited. "Qi Lin, let's go on that one." Okay, Song Taohao and the others wouldn't refuse Xu Jiatong's suggestion, so they all turned their gazes toward Wen Tingwen and Shunchalin. Wen Tingwen hadn't expressed any opinion from start to finish. She wasn't afraid of thrilling rides, nor did she dislike milder ones. She could accept anything, though there wasn't any particular attraction she especially liked. Shunchalin shook his head. "You guys go ahead, I'm not into these things, so I won't be joining." Just as the words of refusal left his lips, Xu Jiatong immediately grabbed the hem of his clothes, swaying it coquettishly. "Chalin, come with us, I'll be scared without you." Faced with her pitiful expression, Shunchalin couldn't bring himself to refuse again and had no choice but to agree. Yet, the moment he did, his gaze instinctively turned towards Wen Wn. She remained as composed as ever. Showing no reaction whatsoever, as if nothing mattered to her at all, she was so calm that a sudden unease rose in his heart. Yet when Tingwen had already walked toward the shop assistant selling raincoats, shortly after, she returned empty-handed and shook her head at them. "I asked the shop assistant, but the raincoats are already sold out," she said. Hearing her words, Shunchalin hesitated again. Xu Jiatong noticed his hesitation and quickly spoke up to persuade him. "It's fine without raincoats, we can just dry off with a towel afterward if we get wet. Chalin, I really want to play." In the end, Shunchalin still gave in to her. The group boarded the rapid river ride boat, and after securing all safety measures, the boat slowly ascended to its highest point before plummeting rapidly under the force of gravity. The tremendous impact sent massive waves splashing toward the people inside the boat. As the waves crashed down, Shunchalin instinctively opened his coat and firmly shielded Xu Jiatong in his arms. By the time the ride ended and they disembarked, everyone except Xu Jiatong was completely drenched. It wasn't until Shunchalin saw Wen Wn soaked that he realized he had been solely focused on protecting Xu Jiatong the entire time, completely forgetting about her. He gave her an apologetic look, but she didn't mind and even took the initiative to make an excuse for him. "It's okay. You were closer to her, so it's normal to protect her." When Tingwen appeared completely unfazed, going to a nearby store to buy a towel and carefully drying her wet clothes and hair, the next activity was still Xu Jiatong's suggestion, heading toward the escape room. Soon, the group entered the escape room under the guide of the person in charge. They chose a horror-themed one. Xu Jiatong, who was both timid and eager to play, immediately stuck close to Shunchalin as soon as they went in. When Tingwen observed their every move silently, never uttering a word from start to finish, she quietly watched as Xu Jiatong occasionally screamed in fright, only to be pulled into Shunshalin's arms. "Don't be afraid, it's all fake." The puzzles in the escape room weren't difficult, but because the players each had their own hidden agendas, it took nearly 2 hours to reach the final challenge. The final level doesn't require decryption, but it does involve following the storyline. According to the instructions, a man and a woman need to roleplay as the bride and groom, going through all the traditional wedding rituals. After completing the entire process, they can watch a video of the NPC's memories to clear the level. Logically, Wen Tingwen and Shunchalin are the only couple present, making them the most suitable candidates for the roles. However, Song Taohao suddenly spoke up at this moment. "I heard my sister-in-law is afraid of ghosts. Why not let Jiatong and Brother Shun take on the roles instead?" Chapter 7. As soon as these words were spoken, the other brothers chimed in one after another. When Tingwen listened to their clumsy excuses but chose not to expose them. For instance, the one who had been screaming in fright all the way here was actually Xu Jiatong. And even if she truly couldn't handle the task and had to let Xu Jiatong go, with so many people present, it wasn't absolutely necessary for Shunchalin to take on the role. Shunchalin neither agreed nor refused outright. But it was Xu Jiatong who spoke up at that moment. "This isn't appropriate. Having me and Qi Lin perform. Wanna will get angry again later." Though her words were of refusal, her hand remained firmly clasped with Shunshalin's, unrelenting. Her gaze towards Wen Tingwen was brimming with provocation. At that moment, Wen Tingwen, who had been silently listening all along, moved. Her slightest movement made Song Taohao and the others assume she was angry again, and they began reproaching her in their remarks. "It's just a game, why take it so seriously?" Wen Tingwen sneered inwardly but feigned confusion on her face. "What are you all talking about? Isn't there still one witness missing? I'm just here to be the witness." With that, she walked to the witness's position and gestured for Shun Qilin and Xu Jiatong to quickly take their respective places. No one had expected this reaction from her. After exchanging bewildered glances, the crowd began to cheer again, saying, "Even the sister-in-law says it's fine," urging them to step forward quickly. After making the arrangements, she began reciting the prayers, and the ceremony proceeded smoothly until Wen Tingwen announced, "Now, the groom may kiss the bride." At that moment, Shun Qilin's movements suddenly froze. Seeing him stop abruptly, Wen Tingwen didn't ask why. Instead, she walked straight behind him and gave him a forceful push, sending him stumbling toward Xu Jiatong. With that stumble, Shun Qilin's lips landed on Xu Jiatong's cheek. As the kiss landed, the backdrop screen began playing a video. From the perspective of the female protagonist, it told the story of how she was deceived by a heartless man, her love misplaced, and how she died on her wedding day. Her soul, unable to find peace, became trapped in the house as a vengeful spirit, swearing to kill all unfaithful men in the world. In the end, she was moved by the sincere love between the players, letting go of her obsession and re-entering the cycle of reincarnation. The story ends as the last door opens, and the group emerges from the room, recalling the mention of sincere love in the final video. Their expressions vary. Only Wen Tingwen remains unfazed, seemingly unaffected. "Tingwen. Just now, Jiatong and I were only..." Shun Qilin begins to explain but is cut off by Wen Tingwen before he can finish. "I know, I understand, it was just a game," she says. Her expression is calm, yet he recalls the moment she pushed him at the end. "Then what did you mean by pushing me at the end?" he asks. How could there be a girlfriend who actively pushes her boyfriend toward someone else? He stared intently at Wen Tingwen, as if trying to detect some trace of emotion on her face. But she just smiled. "What else could it mean? I just wanted to finish the level quickly, that's all." Shun Qilin was about to say something more when Xu Jiatong, who had been following behind, suddenly quickened her pace and walked up to him, taking his hand. "Qilin, I'm hungry, there's a restaurant ahead. Let's go grab something to eat." Seeing Xu Jiatong approach and say she was hungry, Shun Qilin instinctively checked the time. It was already lunchtime, and indeed time to eat. So he nodded and walked ahead. Seeing this, Song Taohao and the others tactfully waved their hands. "We should head back too, so we won't join you. If I don't go back soon, my girlfriend will come looking for me." With that, he didn't forget to give Xu Jiatong a suggestive cheer gesture, bid farewell to Shun Qilin, and then turned directly to walk toward the exit. Wen Tingwen, deliberately ignored by everyone, glanced at Shun Qilin and Xu Jiatong standing closely together and also spoke up. "You guys go ahead and eat, I have some things to take care of, so I'll leave first." After saying that, without waiting to see their reactions, she turned and walked away. Wen Tingwen wasn't making excuses. She had applied for a passport some time ago, and today happened to be the day she could collect it. After leaving the amusement park, Wen Tingwen took a taxi directly to the police station to collect her passport. The first thing she did after getting her passport was to take a photo and post it on her social media, holding the passport and the offer letter with the caption, "Embarking on a new journey in life," visible to everyone except Xu Jiatong, Shun Qilin, and his friends. She had only intended to share her joy. But 3 days later, she received an unexpected phone call from her university mentor, who had guided her for 4 years, since she had given up her beloved career for Shun Qilin back then. They had lost contact entirely. Looking back now, her mentor must have been disappointed in her lack of determination at the time. "Professor, what made you suddenly think of calling me?" On the other end of the line, her mentor's voice was cheerful. "I heard you're going abroad to pick up design again. Coincidentally, there's a class reunion tomorrow. Come join us. Consider it a farewell gathering for you." Thinking of her long unseen mentor and classmates, Wen Tingwen didn't hesitate and agreed immediately. That night, she went to bed early in the guest room, not even noticing when Shinchalin returned. Chapter 8. The next day, Wen Tingwen left the house and took a taxi directly to the address her mentor had sent her. As soon as she entered the reserved private room, her mentor waved her over to sit beside him. Since it was a class reunion, even though they hadn't seen each other for years, there was no shortage of topics to discuss. A group of people were eating and chatting, and time passed quickly. Just as Wen Tingwen was talking to her mentor, her phone suddenly rang. She picked up the phone and saw that it was a call from Shinchalin's law firm intern. As soon as the call connected, the intern's panicked voice came through. Tingwen, Attorney Shin is having stomach pain again, but I don't know what medicine he should take. What should I do? Wen Tingwen didn't hide anything and directly told the intern the names of the 2 medications he usually takes. Immediately after, the sound of rummaging came from the other end, and finally, the intern's voice, choked with tears, spoke up. Tingwen Jie, I couldn't find them in the office. Could you come and deliver them, if it were before? Wen Tingwen would have agreed immediately upon hearing the intern's request, but now, she didn't hesitate at all and refused outright. If they're not there, you can buy them at a nearby pharmacy or have them delivered by a courier. Both options are very convenient. I won't be coming over. After saying that, she hung up the phone directly. Seeing this, the mentor, who had remained silent until then, asked, Is that the boyfriend who made you give up everything back then? Wen Tingwen nodded. Yes. Will he agree to you going abroad? The mentor looked at Wen Tingwen, her voice filled with unmistakable concern. Wen Tingwen was the top-ranked student in the department. She loved jewelry design, had considerable talent, and was willing to work hard. Her future seemed bright. But because of a relationship, she willingly gave up jewelry design to devote herself entirely to taking care of her boyfriend. She was also afraid that Wen Tingwen might give up this hard-earned opportunity just because her boyfriend disagreed. But fortunately, she quickly shook her head. His opinion doesn't matter. I've already decided to break up with him. Unexpectedly, just a casual question led to a pleasant surprise. The mentor burst into laughter. Good, that's how a woman should be. How could you sacrifice your future for a man? Tingwen, you were the most talented student I ever taught. If you had stayed on this path, your future would have been bright. It's a shame you made the wrong choice before, but this time, you must make a name for yourself. When Tingwen listened with a faint smile, I will, because I've already learned how to love myself. By the time the class reunion ended and when Tingwen returned home, it was already very late. She pushed open the door and entered the living room. As the lights turned on, she immediately saw Shinchalin sitting on the sofa with a gloomy expression. Startled at first, she frowned involuntarily upon recognizing Shinchalin. What are you doing here? Shinchalin stared intently at Wen Tingwen with a pale face, and after a long while, he finally spoke, but not to answer her question. Where have you been? Why are you back so late? Don't you know I had a stomachache today? Why didn't you come to me? A series of questions, enough to express his displeasure, yet, in stark contrast to his irritation, she looked at him with nothing but calmness on her face. I won't be going over today. Firstly, I genuinely have something to attend to, and secondly, I'm quite far from your company. There's really no need for me to come. It would be more appropriate for you to have someone go buy it or order delivery. Even if I went, I wouldn't be able to help you. After saying this, she prepared to leave again. Shinchalin could no longer remain calm, his voice involuntarily rising. When Tingwen, you weren't like this before. She looked at him indifferently. What was I like before? Shinchalin's body trembled slightly, visibly growing more agitated, when Tingwen pressed her fingers to her temples, then suddenly reached out and grabbed him. She spoke, but her words sent him plummeting into an icy abyss. All right, it's too late. I'm exhausted. Calm down, I'm going to bed first. Chapter 9, with only 2 days left before her departure. When Tingwen deleted and blocked all contacts of Shinchalin and his friends, after all, the one he liked wasn't her, and the one they truly recognized as their sister-in-law was Xu Jiatong. Once she went abroad, there would be no need to stay in touch with any of them. After removing all her friends, she then left all the group chats she had joined for Shinchalin's sake, having cleared everything related to him. Wen Tingwen turned her attention to packing her luggage. After living here for 5 years, it took quite some effort to sort everything out. Fortunately, early this morning, Shinchalene mentioned that the law firm had received a new case and hurried out the door, giving her time to pack up. After placing the suitcase by the entrance and finishing everything, Shinchalene happened to push the door open and walk in. As soon as he entered, he spotted the suitcase piled by the door, and a sense of foreboding suddenly rose in his heart. He asked her, "What's going on here?" She was surprised that Shinchalene had returned so early today, but her expression remained unchanged as she glanced at the suitcases. Casually, she came up with an excuse. "There are many things that have gotten old, I'm planning to replace them. These are meant to be thrown away." He gave a skeptical glance but eventually averted his gaze. Shinchalene came back at this time today for another matter, and just thinking about it made him furious. With a hint of fear in his tone, "Why did you suddenly delete me?" Unexpectedly, he discovered the deletion so quickly. Wen Tingwen then took out her phone, logged out of the account, and feigned surprise as she replied, "Oh no, why did my account log out by itself?" Under Shinchalene's watchful gaze, she went through the motions of logging back in and looked at him apologetically. "That must be why you were removed as a friend. My account was hacked." Perhaps her acting was too obvious. Or maybe he had noticed her recent odd behavior, but he wasn't entirely convinced by Wen Tingwen's excuse. "Then add me back right now, I'll watch you do it," he said, not moving an inch as he stood firmly in front of her. Wen Tingwen had no choice but to pick up her phone and aim it at the QR code he had revealed. Before the information could be scanned, his phone suddenly rang. The name Jiatong appeared on the screen, and he immediately put his phone away. The call connected. And whatever was said on the other end, Wen Tingwen only noticed a slight change in his expression. "Jiatong, don't worry, I'll be right there." As soon as the words were spoken, he turned around and walked straight out the door. Wen Tingwen calmly closed the friend request interface and was about to put away her phone when a trending topic suddenly popped up. The trending keyword was Shu Jiatong plagiarism. Shu Jiatong was a rising star in jewelry design in recent years. Having gained fame after participating in a national competition for newcomers, where she overcame all obstacles to claim the championship, but now it's been exposed that the most sought-after championship design was plagiarized. Coincidentally, she had plagiarized Wen Tingwen's design. No wonder Shu Jiatong was in such a hurry to call Shinchalene earlier. Shinchalene is her ex-boyfriend and also a lawyer. So he must be the quickest to help her solve the problem. Unfortunately, plagiarism is a dead end in the design industry. Shu Jiatong is digging her own grave. But none of this had anything to do with her. She opened the ticket booking app and purchased a flight ticket to London for the next day. Now, everything was ready. All she had to do was leave directly tomorrow. Shinchalene returned the next morning. He looked hurried, and when he saw Wen Tingwen having breakfast, he hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. "Tingwen, Jiatong's recently released design drafts were exposed for plagiarism. I've seen the original. It's your True Love series that you posted on Weibo 5 years ago. She's already issued a statement denying plagiarism and claiming it was a collaborative effort with you. Could you log into Weibo and repost it to help her out this time?" 5 years ago, when she decided to quit the jewelry design industry, she pulled several all-nighters just to give the already released True Love collection a proper ending. Back then, he had also asked her why she would give up something she loved so much. Her answer was that her career wasn't as important as him. The True Love collection was the first series they released after getting together, designed for him, and ultimately ended because of him. Shinchalene knew better than anyone how significant the True Love collection was to her. Yet for Shu Jiatong's sake, he still made such a request of her, making the plagiarized party clarify for the plagiarist. She found it somewhat amusing and couldn't help but laugh out loud, looking up at him. "Do you really want me to repost for her?" He looked at her without speaking. Yet when Tingwen could still discern his intention, he wanted her to help Shu Jiatong. The reason he proposed it was because he was certain she wouldn't refuse him. After all, he knew better than anyone how much Wen Tingwen loved him. Looking at her calm expression, Shinchalene felt a twinge of guilt. After some thought, he decided to offer her some compensation. "Didn't you always want to visit the Holy Spirit Islands? once you've issued the statement, we'll go together, okay? As if to demonstrate his resolve, he immediately bought 2 plane tickets to Australia right in front of Wen Tingwen. She had just finished the payment when Xu Jiatong's call came in again. Qilin, someone has posted my address online, and now there's a crowd gathered downstairs at my place. I'm so scared. A voice choked with sobs came through the phone. The moment Shen Qilin heard that Xu Jiatong was being surrounded, he panicked instantly. He only had time to remind Wen one last time to repost the clarification before rushing out the door again, and she just watched quietly as his figure disappeared through the doorway, making no move to stop him. Soon after, she leisurely finished her breakfast, cleaned the dishes, and then took out her phone to log into the Weibo account she hadn't accessed in 5 years. She reposted Xu Jiatong's defensive post and added 8 bold words: "No collaboration, just plagiarism." After posting on Weibo, she ignored the ensuing storm, removed the SIM card, snapped it in half, threw it into the trash, and then got up to retrieve her luggage from the room. With one last glance at the house, she turned and walked out the door, hailed a taxi, and headed straight to the airport with all her luggage. This time, she wouldn't stay for anyone. Chapter 10. This Weibo post quickly sparked heated discussions. The original creator stepped forward, explicitly naming Xu Jiatong as the plagiarist, making her stubborn refusal to admit guilt after being exposed seem utterly ridiculous. Just half an hour earlier, she had even posted, claiming it was merely a case of collaborative inspiration sharing. The anger of netizens surged wave after wave, with some extremists even finding Xu Jiatong's exact address and painting the words "plagiarist scum" die in bright red on her front door. At that time, Shen Qilin was in Xu Jiatong's room, trying to comfort her and telling her not to be afraid. "Jiatong, it's okay. I'm a lawyer. After all, I won't let any of these people who exposed your personal information or came to intimidate you get away with it. They'll pay the price they deserve." But his attempts to comfort her didn't stop Xu Jiatong from crying. Instead, she wept even harder. She dug out the Weibo post Wen Tingwen had recently made accusing her of plagiarism, threw herself into Shen Qilin's arms, her voice full of grievance and fear. "Qilin, didn't you say Tingwen promised to help clear my name? Why is she still calling me a plagiarist? Does she still refuse to forgive me?" Her tearful, pitiful appearance made Shen Qilin's heart ache. Upon hearing that Wen Tingwen had posted on Weibo only to accuse her, a surge of anger instantly rose within him. He instinctively wanted to check Wen Tingwen's friend list, but then remembered that yesterday, when he insisted on watching her add him back as a friend, Xu Jiatong's phone call had interrupted them. Later, he never received a friend request, making it all too clear that she hadn't added him back. Helpless, he could only try to find her phone number, but when he dialed it, he realized he had been blocked. Connecting this with the suitcases he saw piled by the door yesterday, an absurd thought surfaced. Forcing himself to stay calm, he searched through the group chats Wen Tingwen had painstakingly added him to. He scrolled through the member list again and again, but the familiar profile picture was nowhere to be found. He tried every possible way to reach Wen Tingwen, but all efforts ended in vain. Even on Weibo, he found himself blocked. The unease in his heart grew stronger. He then called Song Taohao and the others, not even bothering to pay attention when Xu Jiatong asked what was wrong. "Can you get in touch with Tingwen?" He got straight to the point, clearly stating his purpose, but after asking everyone, the answer he received was that she had suddenly become unreachable. Only then did Shen Qilin realize that he actually couldn't find Wen Tingwen. A flicker of confusion passed through his eyes. Unsure of what exactly had happened, but he instinctively stood up and headed for the door. Seeing him about to leave, Xu Jiatong panicked instantly. "Qilin, where are you going? Don't leave me behind, I'll be scared alone." The tactic that had worked just moments ago suddenly failed now. Shen Qilin pushed her away and went straight downstairs to the underground garage, driving off directly toward home. Xu Jiatong didn't dare to go out alone, seeing him leave without a second thought. She could only angrily close the door again. When she walked to the window, she happened to see Shen Qilin's car speeding away. 20 minutes later, Shen Qilin returned home. Pushing open the door, he searched room by room but found no trace of Wen. Upon closer inspection, Not only was Wen gone, but all her luggage had disappeared as well. He searched the room carefully, trying to find any trace of Wen presence, but in the end, all he found was a note on the nightstand in the master bedroom. Shunchalin, let's break up, just 8 short words, yet they struck Shunchalин's heart like a heavy hammer. Wen wanted to break up with him, but she clearly liked him so much, how could she bear to let go? Back then, for him, she was even willing to give up her beloved jewelry design. Now, all he asked was for her to issue a clarification statement for Xu Jiatong, yet she simply abandoned him. Shunchalin didn't want to believe it, but he had no choice but to accept it. When Wen left so decisively, leaving him no chance to persuade her to stay, he didn't even know where she went after leaving. Did she go to another city, or another country? Chapter 11. Shunchalin looked at the empty room, feeling as if his heart was equally hollow. A wave of sorrow surged from the depths of his heart, relentlessly assaulting his rationality. He even tried running back to the law firm and using his colleagues' phones to call Wen, but no matter how many times he tried, all he heard on the other end was the cold, mechanical voice saying, "The number you have dialed cannot be reached." His phone rang, and when he picked it up, he saw it was a call from Xu Jiatong. "Qi Lin, where have you gone? I'm so scared." Xu Jiatong's delicate voice came through the phone, but his heart no longer felt the same urgency it had when he first heard it. He rubbed his temples and remained silent for a long time, until faint sobs came from the other end. Finally, he spoke helplessly, "Since I've taken on your case, I'll see it through to the end. Don't worry, I won't let those who resorted to illegal means get away with it." Shunchalin ultimately stepped in to help Xu Jiatong quell the turmoil. Although he couldn't clear her name of plagiarism accusations, he made an example of those who had leaked Xu Jiatong's private information and splashed paint on her door by having them detained for a few days. However, after this incident, news of Wen and Shunshalin's breakup spread, or more accurately, the news of her quietly leaving surfaced. Upon hearing about it, Song Taohao and the others immediately arranged to meet Shunchalin. The moment he arrived at the bar, they all gathered around him. No wonder Brother Shun has been busy handling Jiatong's case these past few days, when Tingwen hasn't come looking for him. Turns out she finally had the self-awareness to give up. "Hey, Brother Shun, since she's wisely backed off on her own, when do you plan to get back together with Jiatong?" The group chattered back and forth, but Shunchalin didn't quite grasp their meaning. "What do you mean, get back together? What do you mean? Don't you like Jiatong?" The moment these words were spoken, it was the others who were left stunned. "You're not planning to reconcile with Jiatong. Why should I get back together with her?" Shunchalin took a swig from a bottle of alcohol, his eyes filled with dejection. Over the past few days, he had tried every possible method but still couldn't find out where Wen Tingwen had gone. The only information he could gather was that Wen Tingwen had ultimately gone abroad. But as to which country or place she ended up in, he had no idea. He shook his head, his voice tinged with sorrow. "Right now, I just want to find Tingwen as soon as possible." "What are you looking for Wen Tingwen for, Brother Shun? Don't tell me you've really fallen for Wen Tingwen." Song Taohao's eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Shunchalin, who had grown noticeably more haggard over the past few days, as if he had just had a sudden realization. Shunchalin took one sip of alcohol after another, but when he heard the question, he suddenly froze. Falling for Wen Tingwen, he had never considered that question before. It was just that now, with Wen Tingwen quietly gone, he always felt an emptiness in his heart and found it very hard to adjust. After a long silence, he let out a self-deprecating laugh and spoke in a low voice. "She was my girlfriend. We were together for 5 years. Isn't it normal for me to have fallen for her? If you liked her, then, what's the deal with you and Jiatong?" On the other side, Jiyu Yangcheng snatched the bottle of alcohol from his hand and set it aside, his eyes filled with confusion. "We all thought you liked Jiatong and were forced by Aunt Shun to be with Wen Tingwen. That's why we went out of our way to give you and Jiatong time alone, and you never refused. Now you're saying you like Wen Tingwen." Shunchalin grabbed another bottle of alcohol and sprawled on the sofa, his entire being exuding an air of despondency. His voice was laced with regret. "I don't know. All I know is that the day I realized she was gone, it felt like a part of my heart was missing. No matter what I do, I can't stop thinking about her." He thought they would side with him, but to his surprise, as his words fell, the others looked at him with complicated expressions. In the end, it was Jiyu Yangcheng who let out a mocking laugh, placing the bottle back in front of him. "Shinchalin, you deserve it." Chapter 12. The others kept him company for a while before gradually dispersing, leaving Shinchalin alone in the private room, drowning his sorrows one glass after another. Shinchalin rarely indulged himself like this. During his school days, he had always been the model child others admired, constrained by the image of a good student, never daring to step out of line. The first time he let himself go was the year he met Xu Jiatong. Her grades were poor, and in class, she was often the one bullied and isolated. What left a deep impression on Shinchalin was that every time he encountered her, she was being mistreated. He had helped her a few times, and as a result, she latched onto him. Later, Shinchalin discovered that Xu Jiatong was quite popular with the opposite sex, and even his own friends were fond of her. Even he, at the time, couldn't resist falling in love with her during their interactions. They dated for 3 years. And Shinchalin originally planned to propose after introducing her to his parents post-graduation. However, Shen's mother disapproved of Xu Jiatong. She felt Xu Jiatong was too calculating, so she paid to send her abroad and arranged a blind date for Shen with Wen. Actually, at first, he disliked Wen Tingwen. Although Xu Jiatong's departure had nothing to do with her, she ultimately took Xu Jiatong's place. Back then, he thought he would never like her, but later, Wen Tingwen gave up so much for Shinchalin, yet every time he asked her why, she would say that in her heart, he was the most important. For Shinchalin, she could give up anything, even everything. He began to be moved by her unreserved love, and his attitude toward her softened. Xu Jiatong returned at this very moment, with his not yet fully extinguished affections surging back. He once again distanced himself from Wen, because he believed that if it weren't for Wen, his girlfriend now should have been Xu Jiatong, whom he truly liked. He also thought that what he wanted was Xu Jiatong, until later, every time Song Taohao and the others egged them on, creating opportunities for him and Xu Jiatong, he didn't refuse, but a sense of resistance began to emerge in his heart. At that time, he thought to himself, this would be the last time. From then on, he would only treat Xu Jiatong as a friend. He believed he could do it. When Wen initially allowed him to spend time with Xu Jiatong, he truly thought he had managed both relationships well, but later, it was his own indulgence, testing her limits, only to find that she would choose to leave at this very moment. He couldn't help but think that perhaps he really deserved it. Most of the bottle in front of him was empty, and Shinchalin's consciousness gradually blurred, faintly. He seemed to see a familiar figure. He reached out to her and saw her smiling as she helped him up, leading him toward the private room upstairs. "Wanwan, is it really you, or is this just a dream?" She paused for a moment but quickly regained her composure, her voice gentle, slightly different from what he remembered. "Yes, I'm back. Let me help you rest first." But Shinchalin, already too dazed to discern anything, heard a ding as the elevator stopped, supported into the room. He was placed on the soft bed and immediately fell into a deep sleep. By the bedside, Xu Jiatong's fingers traced over his tightly closed eyes before settling on the buttons of his shirt, a flicker of resentment flashing in her eyes. "Shinchalin, you are mine. I won't let you fall in love with anyone else, in this lifetime. You can only be with me." With that, she removed her clothes and lay down beside him. Chapter 13. 5 years later, at Beijing Airport, Wen Tingwen, dressed in a red dress and wearing sunglasses, walked out of the terminal. Stepping once again onto the land where she had lived for many years, she couldn't help but feel a wave of emotions. When she left for London years ago, she had intended to stay there permanently, but after 5 years, she finally understood why London was often called a culinary wasteland. Fortunately, London had Chinese supermarkets where she could buy ingredients to cook her own meals, making her life there a bit more bearable. So, when she learned that her company planned to establish a branch in China, she immediately applied to return with the team. The main group was still behind and hadn't come out yet. Wen Tingwen pushed her suitcase to the side of the exit, waiting for them to emerge. Just then, a familiar male voice rang out from behind, tinged with disbelief. "Wanwan, is that you?" As the words fell, a shadow loomed over her. She looked up. And who else could it be but Shinchalin? After 5 long years, he had finally laid eyes on the person he had dreamed of seeing. His voice trembled as he reached out to pull her into his embrace. But Wen Tingwen was quicker. The moment he extended his hand, she took a step back. "Mr. Shin, please behave yourself." The distant form of address caught Shinchalin off guard, and her retreating movement pierced his heart with pain. "Wanwan, where have you been all these years? I've searched for you for 5 whole years, and I've finally found you, Mr. Shin. Where I've been is none of your concern, nor did I ever ask you to look for me. Moreover, our relationship isn't close enough for you to call me Wanwan." His eyes held a depth of emotion she couldn't comprehend. Yet despite his instantly reddened eyes, she remained cold and distant. "You may address me as Miss Wen, Mr. Shin." He shook his head, still somewhat in disbelief. "Wanwan, how can we have no connection? You're still angry with me, aren't you? I know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I promise I won't let you down this time." Wen Tingwen sighed helplessly, finally understanding what it meant to cast pearls before swine. "Shinchalin, are you incapable of understanding human speech? What anger am I holding against you? Have you forgotten? We broke up 5 years ago. Give you another chance. Ha, Shinchalin, on what grounds? Zoe, are you ready? We should go." Amid the entanglement, the others had already reached the exit. Looking back, they noticed Wen Tingwen still standing in place and called out to remind her. The moment she heard these words, Wen Tingwen pushed her suitcase past Shinchalin. "I have things to do and no time to waste arguing with you here. Excuse me." Without waiting for his reaction, she quickened her pace and walked away with her suitcase. Shinchalin wanted to chase after her but was stopped by a hand reaching out from beside him. "She clearly doesn't want anything to do with you, sir. Persisting like this isn't what a gentleman would do." The man's voice was gentle, but Shinchalin frowned. "This is between her and me. Who are you to interfere in our affairs? Because I'm her boyfriend." The man curled his lips into a mocking and disdainful smile. "When someone harasses my girlfriend, tell me, Mr. Lawyer. If I don't have the right to step in, who does?" Shinchalin sensed the hostility in his words but remained skeptical about his claim of being her boyfriend. After all, when Wen Tingwen left earlier, she clearly hadn't intended to wait for anyone. "She likes me," he asserted confidently. Yet the moment the words left his mouth, the man before him burst into laughter. "I don't know where some people get such audacity. You're just a thing of the past, while I'm her present. And you're telling me she likes you. Perhaps she did like you once, but since someone has already chosen another, why come pestering now?" Chapter 14. Shinchalin didn't want to believe it, but the other man spoke with such certainty, even recounting details between him and Wen Tingwen, that it unsettled him. Had Wen Tingwen really fallen for someone else? But she had loved him so deeply before, how could she possibly fall for someone else so easily? He stared at the man before him. Lips pressed tightly together, and after a long pause, he finally spoke unwillingly. "I won't give up on her. No matter who you are, don't even think about taking her away from me. My name is Qiao Yujun. Feel free to try." Qiao Yujun raised an eyebrow slightly, unfazed by his threats, finding them almost laughable. Take her away from him? What a joke. Wen Tingwen had already left him on her own accord 5 years ago, yet he was still lost in the past. Deluding himself into thinking she remained his possession, he looked at Shinchalin as if watching a clown, giving him a once-over before leisurely walking in the direction Wen Tingwen had left. Only Shinchalin remained on the spot, his face alternating between red and white. Qiao Yujun, the only son of the top wealthy family in the capital, the sole heir of the Qiao group, how could he possibly know Wen Tingwen? They were from completely different worlds. Moreover, didn't I hear that Qiao Yujun has a foreign girlfriend? How could his girlfriend possibly be Wen Tingwen? Isn't he just deceiving her? He clenched his fists, watching Qiao Yujun's retreating figure with boiling anger in his heart. He would definitely go to Wen Tingwen to expose Qiao Youjuan's true colors and not let his scheme succeed. Wen Tingwen knew that it was quite normal for her and Shen Qilin to meet in Jing City. But she never expected Jing City to be this small. Shen Qilin's law firm actually had a collaboration with the legal department of DW's domestic branch. Fortunately, she was responsible for the jewelry design section and generally had little interaction with legal affairs. Therefore, when she saw that the legal representative was Shen Qilin, she was only momentarily surprised and didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until just after lunch at noon that she noticed a bouquet of fiery red roses on her desk. A colleague who had just returned with her exclaimed, "Wow, Zoe, your partner is quite romantic." But when the colleague turned to look at Wen Tingwen, they realized there wasn't a trace of joy on her face. Without even a moment's hesitation, she tossed the bouquet of roses straight into the trash bin. Such beautiful flowers, why throw them away? The colleague looked at the discarded roses with a hint of regret in their eyes, but Wen Tingwen just smiled. "If I kept them and my boyfriend saw, he'd definitely get jealous. You know how the eldest son of the Qiao family loves to be jealous." Hearing this, the colleague finally understood that the flowers weren't from Qiao Yuzhan. Their eyes sparkled with curiosity, their voice brimming with eagerness. "How did you know they weren't from him?" Thinking of Qiao Yuzhan, a sweet smile involuntarily appeared on her face. "He knows I don't like roses." As the two were talking, they didn't notice that not far away, a pair of eyes were fixedly watching them, and that person was none other than Shen Qilin. He couldn't hear what Wen Tingwen and the other person were saying. Only seeing her toss the roses into the trash without hesitation or a second thought, after a brief moment of disappointment, Shen Qilin became even more convinced of his own thoughts. Indeed, Wen Tingwen doesn't like Qiao Yuzhan. Otherwise, upon seeing roses, a flower symbolizing love, she would have at least checked if they were from Qiao Yuzhan before deciding whether to throw them away. Right, moreover, Qiao Yuzhan hasn't shown up even once these past few days. Combined with Wen Tingwen's decisive action of discarding the flowers, doesn't this suggest they don't truly like each other and might not even be a couple? Doesn't this also mean there's still a possibility for him? Chapter 15. Joy welled up in his heart, sweeping away the gloomy mood that had weighed on him in recent days. Having obtained the answer he desired, Shen Qilin kept glancing at the clock on the wall. This was probably the first day in 5 years that he had eagerly anticipated leaving work. As time ticked by, he finally reached the end of the workday. Shen Qilin hurried downstairs and waited by Wen Wan's car. 10 minutes later, Wen Tingwen, who had packed up her things and was ready to head home after work, spotted Shen Qilin waiting by the car. The moment he saw her approaching, the smile on his face became impossible to hide. "Wan, do you have time today? My mom heard you're back in the country and has been wanting to see you." Wen Tingwen had initially planned to leave directly, but at the mention of Shen's mother, she paused. Although she and Shen Qilin had already broken up during the 5 years they were together, his mother had treated her quite well. "It wouldn't hurt to meet her. I'll visit when I have time." After saying this, she also got into the car. As the vehicle started, he still refused to leave. Though the window muffled his voice, she heard his words clearly. "Wan, I don't know what your relationship with Qiao Yuzhan is, but I want to tell you, he's definitely not a good person. He already has a girlfriend abroad. Wan, I can't bear to see you deceived. Can you listen to me for one more sentence?" The car window slowly rolled down, revealing Wen Wan's delicate profile. "What else do you want to say? But let me remind you first, if it's about me and Qiao Yuzhan, there's no need to continue. Our matters have nothing to do with you." The phrase, "our matters have nothing to do with you," completely dissipated the faint joy that had just risen in Shen Qilin's eyes. She had completely separated herself from him and Qiao Yuzhan. Yet he still couldn't accept it. He had only made one mistake, so why wouldn't she even give him a single chance? A hurt expression flickered across Shen Qilin's face, but before Wen Tingwen's patience ran out, he quickly spoke up. "Wan, you have to believe me. My love for you is real. And everything I've said is true. Someone like Qiao Yuzhan, a spoiled rich kid, how could he ever be sincere? Has he even told you that he has a girlfriend abroad?" Though he spoke with deep emotion. When Tingwen paid no attention to his words, she turned her head and finally gave Shen Qilin a serious look. But the expression in her eyes was not the gratitude and joy he had imagined. Instead, it was deep mockery. Shancheline, it's been 5 years. Have you really turned into someone who enjoys stirring up trouble like this? Indeed, the human heart is like a mirror. What kind of person you are is what you assume others to be. Who is Xiao Yujun? He's my boyfriend. And I know him better than you do. Before you slander him, did it ever occur to you that his so-called girlfriend abroad is actually me? Hearing her words, Shancheline froze. He had never expected Wenwan's response to be like this, nor had he anticipated that her opinion of him would be so harsh. He stood frozen in place, watching Wen Tingwen roll up the car window and gradually drive away. 20 minutes later, Wen Tingwen returned to her rented apartment. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Xiao Yujun wearing an apron. The moment he noticed her return, a gentle smile immediately bloomed on his face. You're back, just wait for the last soup to be ready, and we can have dinner. Seeing him in this novel attire, Wen Tingwen was still somewhat surprised. She reached out and pinched his cheek as he leaned in. You can actually cook. How many more surprises do you have that I don't know about? Zhou Yujun gave a doting smile, pulling Wen Tingwen to sit at the dining table. I just learned this today. Give it a try. She glanced at the 4 dishes on the table, all simple home-style cooking. Though basic, they looked quite presentable. Picking up her chopsticks, she took a bite, her eyes suddenly lighting up with surprise before she gave him a thumbs up. Delicious. Wen Tingwen didn't hold back her praise, then added with admiration, I never knew you had a talent for cooking. Finally, she made the decision. For your first attempt, it's already so delicious. It seems young Master Qiao has quite a talent for cooking. From now on, the task of cooking will be handed over to you. Seemingly not expecting Wenwan to react this way, Xiao Yujun was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter upon realization. You really don't hold back. No one else would dare to order around the heir of the Qiao group like this except you. Chapter 16. The next day at noon, when it was time for lunch, when Wenwan was just about to go downstairs to eat when Shancheline approached her carrying a thermal lunchbox. You haven't eaten yet, Wenwan, have you? I brought you some food, let's eat together. As he spoke, he was about to place the insulated lunchbox on her desk, but unexpectedly, she stopped him. No need, I'll go downstairs to eat by myself. When Tingwen refused without leaving any room for negotiation, yet he still refused to give up. Shancheline forced a smile but still pushed the thermal container toward her. I brought this especially for you, just take it. Before he could finish his sentence, a sharp female voice rang out from behind him. Shancheline, that was prepared by me for you. How dare you give my heartfelt gift to some other little bitch? When Tingwen turned her head and realized it was also an acquaintance, Xu Jiatong, her voice was sharp and harsh, particularly grating in the quiet office, causing others in the room to frown involuntarily. When Tingwen pushed the insulated lunchbox back again, compared to Shancheline, who looked flustered, she appeared remarkably composed. They already said it was prepared for you. What's the point of giving it to me to eat? This scene unexpectedly reminded him of that period 5 years ago when Tingwen decided to leave. She was just like this back then. No matter what happened, she always acted as if she didn't care at all. She didn't care who he was with, nor did she care about him. In a daze, Xu Jiatong had already approached, and upon seeing that familiar face, she was instantly rendered speechless. 5 years ago, taking advantage of Shancheline's drunken state when he mistook her for Wen Tingwen, she climbed into his bed. Though he refused to acknowledge it once sober, he could never shake her off. She assumed the role of Shancheline's girlfriend, driving away all potential romantic interests around him. Shancheline, too lazy to deal with those women, simply let her be. Though no one said it outright, Xu Jiatong knew that Shancheline tolerated her only on the condition that the person she bullied wasn't Wen Tingwen. After a brief silence, intense hatred once again rose in Xu Jiatong's eyes. Before Wen Tingwen appeared, Shancheline had loved her the most, and only her. Even when she first learned that Wen Tingwen and Shancheline were together, Xu Jiatong wasn't panicked, because she knew that as soon as she appeared, Shancheline would return to her side. Later, things indeed unfolded as she had expected. After she returned to the country, although Shancheline didn't break up with Wen Tingwen, All it took was a slight beckoning from her, and Shun Chalin would abandon Wen Tingwen without hesitation to come to her side, until when Tingwen suddenly went abroad, she left, but it seemed as if she had also taken Shun Chalin's soul with her. From then on, Shun Chalin's world was left with only her, and Xu Jiatong, from the unforgettable white moonlight in his heart, turned into nothing more than a grain of rice that had to resort to schemes to cling to his side. She glared at Wen Tingwen with resentment in her eyes. Since she had already left, why come back at all? Seeing her chase after him, Shun Chalin instantly panicked a little. Why did you come here? After asking, he quickly turned to Wen Wanwan to explain. Wanwan, listen to me. There's nothing between us. When Wanwan paid no attention to their emotions and irritably pushed the two aside, Shun Chalin, I don't know what you're trying to do, but I really don't have time to play these childish games with you. This is a company, not a marketplace for your arguments. Don't block the way and disrupt others' work. She walked straight out, and as she reached the door, a man appeared, dressed in a tailored suit, his hair impeccably groomed. As soon as they met, he wrapped his arm around Wen Wanwan's shoulder. Come on, I'll take you to eat. She raised an eyebrow, looking at Xiao Yujun, who was strutting like a peacock in full display, and didn't refuse his approach. What brings you here? If I didn't come soon, my wife would be snatched away by someone else. Xiao Yujuan's voice carried a hint of resentment. When he glanced back at Shun Chalin, his eyes held a veiled warning. If Sister Zheng hadn't called me, were you still not planning to tell me? With just that one look, Shun Chalin and Xu Jiatong behind them didn't dare to take another step forward. Given their status, they were in no position to contend with the heir of the Qiao group, but to give up just like that, he couldn't bring himself to do it. In the end, Shun Chalin had no choice but to turn his gaze toward Xu Jiatong, his voice brimming with anger. Xu Jiatong, who told you to come here? Get the hell back. Chapter 17. The moment the words left his mouth, Xu Jiatong's eyes welled up with tears, her vision blurring as they threatened to spill. She reached out to grab his sleeve, pleading in a low voice, Chalin, I know I was wrong. Next time, I won't act on my own and follow you again. Please don't send me away. Seeing more and more people looking over, Shun Chalin didn't want to drag things out with her. He tossed the lunchbox into the trash bin by her feet. If you're so reluctant to part with your lunchbox, then don't bother bringing me any more in the future. With that, he brushed off her hand and walked away coldly without looking back. Seeing him leave, Xu Jiatong panicked instantly. Without even bothering about the discarded lunchbox, she quickly followed after him. Meanwhile, when Tingwen and Xiao Yujun had already arrived at the restaurant, she finished ordering first and then handed the menu to Xiao Yujun. Our company is hosting a gathering next week, and we can bring family members. Would you like to come? Of course I'll go. Xiao Yujun finished ordering and handed the menu back to the waiter standing nearby, nodding. I can't bear the thought of you watching everyone else paired up while you're all alone. Since you've already invited me, I'll reluctantly accompany you. When Tingwen shot him an annoyed glance, paused for a moment, and then said, Fine, since you're so reluctant, I'll just find someone else to go with me. As she spoke, she even took out her phone, pretending to message someone else. Hearing this, Xiao Yujun looked at Wen Tingwen in disbelief. I was just joking, and you're really going to strip me of my family member status? That's so cruel. The meal ended amidst the playful banter between the two. By the time they returned to the company, Shun Chalin had already left, but from that day on, he completely latched onto Wen Tingwen, sending her flowers and meals every day without fail. Even though each time they would ultimately end up in the trash, he never lost heart. A week passed in the blink of an eye, and soon, it was the day of the company banquet. When Tingwen walked into the venue arm in arm with Xiao Yujun, and as soon as they entered, many people approached them with wine glasses in hand. After exchanging pleasantries with the crowd, she suddenly regretted bringing him along. Aside from a few industry colleagues and business partners, most of the people who came up to greet her, though they initially addressed her, were actually there for Xiao Yujun. Wen Tingwen wasn't particularly fond of handling these business social engagements, yet those people always seemed to use her as their entry point. As a result, what should have been Xiao Yujuan's social obligations ended up exhausting Wen Tingwen the most. Half an hour later, When Tingwen rubbed her nearly stiffened from smiling face and glared at Xiao Yujun. You handle this yourself, I'm going to take a break. When Tingwen took a small piece of cake, found a corner to sit in, and began eating it in small bites, she hadn't even finished a small piece of cake when an unwelcome figure appeared before her. Wanwan, why are you here alone? Shun Qilin smiled, his eyes filled with affection as he looked at Wen. Didn't young Master Qiao come with you? See, I told you those rich playboys have no sincerity. Look, he couldn't even be bothered to accompany you to a banquet. Her expression remained unchanged, without even glancing at him. She prepared to stand up and move to another seat, but the moment she moved, Shun Qilin followed. After a brief standoff, her face was full of impatience as she looked at him. Spit it out if you've got something to say. After uttering a rare curse, Shun Qilin looked somewhat embarrassed and awkwardly began to speak. Wanwan, during the time you were away, I really took the time to reflect. I used to think the person I loved was Xu Jiatong, and I hurt you because of that. I apologize to you. But in the 5 years after you left, I realized that the pain of losing you was far worse than when Xu Jiatong left me. That's when I understood, Wanwan, that I had actually fallen for you long ago. My feelings for Xu Jiatong were just an obsession from the past. Wanwan, can you give me another chance to make things right? Chapter 18. His words were sincere, and if Wen Tingwen hadn't personally experienced that period of time, she might have truly chosen to forgive him. But now, she gave him a cold glance and spoke without mercy. No, you said you only realized later that your feelings for Xu Jiatong were just an obsession. Who knows if you'll say the same about me in the future? If someone can't even recognize their own heart, why should I believe your promises? With every word Wen Tingwen spoke, Shun Qilin felt his heart grow colder, until only a feeble defense remained. Wanwan, I didn't lie to you. Truly, every day you were gone, I felt like life wasn't worth living. Wanwan, I can't live without you. In the distance, Xiao Yujun, who had been held up, noticed the situation and apologetically interrupted the person speaking to him, gesturing toward Wen Tingwen's direction. Sorry, I have something to attend to. I must take my leave. Seeing the man who had been persistently blocking Wen Tingwen, the others nodded understandingly and let him go. Zhou Yujun quickly walked towards the corner but suddenly noticed a sneaky figure. She was dressed as a waitress, her head lowered as she slowly approached Wen Tingwen's direction. Her face was unclear, but it was evident she was a woman. In an instant, a sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Meanwhile, in the corner, due to the standoff between the two, Wen Tingwen remained with her back to the woman, completely unaware of the danger. Zhou Yujun sprinted a few steps forward, but due to the distance, he was still a few steps behind her. At that very moment, the woman pulled out a knife from her bosom and suddenly lunged at Wen Tingwen. Wen Tingwen, die! The moment the voice rang out, Shun Qilin looked up and just caught sight of the knife-wielding woman. The dagger was already inches away from Wen Tingwen. Instantly, his pupils contracted, his eyes widened in horror, and without a second thought, he pulled Wen Tingwen aside, switching places with her. The next second, the sound of a dagger piercing flesh and a man's muffled groan rang in her ears. Blood exploded before her eyes, and in that moment, Wen Tingwen's mind went blank, her ability to react completely lost. Shun Qilin's full weight pressed down on her, making it hard for her to stand. She supported him as they both knelt to the ground. Unexpectedly, the person before her had suddenly changed. The knife-wielding woman froze for only a brief moment before raising her weapon again, aiming to strike at Wen Tingwen, but this time, before she could act, a tremendous force suddenly struck her wrist. The pain in her wrist shot straight to her brain, and she could no longer hold onto the dagger. It clattered to the ground with a sharp sound. The next second, she was also kicked to the ground, then immediately pinned down by arriving security personnel. Unable to move, after a brief moment of panic in the banquet hall, calm quickly returned as the assailant had already been subdued. Some called the police, others called for an ambulance. The woman's mask was violently torn off, and a burning pain spread across her body. When Wan looked up, she immediately recognized the face staring back at her, Xu Jiatong. After a brief moment of daze, when Tingwen finally pieced together the whole story, the only connection between them was Shun Qilin. if she wanted to kill her, it could only be because of him. But Wen Tingwen didn't understand. From their last conversation, she and Shun Chalin should already be in a relationship. Just because he had been bothering her recently, was that reason enough to resort to murder? She sat there in a daze. And soon someone came to support Shun Chalin, settling him aside. Then, when Wen fell into a warm embrace, Chapter 19, feeling the intense heartbeat beside her ear, her body temperature gradually returned to normal. Are you hurt? I'm sorry, I came too late. Xiao Youjuan's voice still carried a slight tremor as he spoke, his eyes scanning her from head to toe. Only after confirming with his own eyes that she bore no injuries did he finally exhale in relief, pulling her back into his embrace. By now, Wen Tingwen had also regained her composure. Sensing his lingering fear, she raised her hand and gently patted his back. I'm fine, don't worry anymore. Though she said this, the heart-stopping scene from moments ago continued to replay in her mind, just a little more, and the one who would have been stabbed would have been Wen Tingwen. He still held her tightly in his arms, unwilling to let go, afraid that if he did, he would find everything before him to be an illusion. Thank goodness you're okay. I was scared to death. Amid the lingering fear, Xiao Yujun suddenly recalled the sight of Wen Tingwen being held in Shun Chalin's arms, and a trace of annoyance flashed through his eyes. It's all his fault for arriving too late, allowing Shun Chalin to step in and take the knife for Wen Tingwen. This scheming man might still exploit Wen Tingwen's kindness to manipulate her into softening her heart, but as long as she is here, no one can take Wen Tingwen away. Wen Tingwen, you bitch, I'll kill you, you wretch, I won't let you off, just you wait. Even while restrained, Xu Jiatong refused to calm down, hurling curses with eyes full of hatred as she glared at Wen Tingwen. But before she could continue her tirade, someone casually grabbed a napkin and stuffed it into her mouth, leaving only Xu Jiatong's muffled cries of resentment in the venue. With such an incident occurring, the banquet naturally couldn't continue. Daring to harm Wanwan, I'll make sure you pay a painful price for your actions. Xiao Yujun, who was comforting Wen Tingwen, heard her curses and suddenly turned to glare at Xu Jiatong, his eyes dark with swirling storm clouds. She was stared at with a gaze as if she were a lifeless object, and finally fell silent. The surge of emotions quickly subsided, and Xu Jiatong finally felt a wave of fear. She timidly shrank back, but since she was already pinned in a corner against the wall under surveillance, there was no room left for retreat. Soon, the police and an ambulance arrived, taking both Xu Jiatong and Shun Chalin away. After giving their statements, the other attendees at the venue also left directly. As for the follow-up handling of Xu Jiatong, Xiao Yujun fully entrusted it to the lawyers to deal with. When they came out of the police station, Sister Zheng was visibly displeased. She pulled Wen aside and complained, I only signed the contract with them because I heard their professional skills were good, but they couldn't even manage their personal lives properly, not only ruining our first banquet but also nearly costing me one of my key team members. What rotten luck to have encountered such a contractor. I'll fire them all as soon as we get back. After a pause, she added bitterly, even if it means losing money, I have to tear up this contract. All right, don't be angry. Getting angry causes wrinkles, and you've spent a fortune on maintaining that face. Since you're already willing to pay to terminate the contract, don't waste your skincare money on them too. Wen Tingwen helplessly tried to soothe her, waiting for her emotions to calm down a bit before continuing. Besides, while their boss was indeed the cause of the problem, he nearly lost his life saving me. That should count as making up for his mistake, so don't be angry anymore, okay? Only after hearing this did Sister Zheng finally relent. Fine, for your sake, I'll let this matter slide for now. We'll deal with everything after Shun Chalin recovers. The two chatted for a while longer before parting ways outside the police station. One headed home, while the other waited for Xiao Yujun to come out before going to the hospital together. After all, he had saved her life. No matter how many grievances there were before, it wouldn't be appropriate to keep holding on to them now. Chapter 20. When they arrived at the hospital with Xiao Yujun, Shun Chalin had already been moved out of the emergency room. When Tingwen and the others went straight to the ward, where Shun Chalin's mother, He Lin, was keeping watch. Wen stepped in first and softly called out, Auntie, Xiao Yujun didn't enter, he simply sat down on a chair outside the ward, inside the ward. He Lin merely glanced up at Wen Tingwen, her expression indifferent. She pointed to a stool beside her and uttered just 2 words, "Have a seat, no need to trouble yourself, auntie, I just came to ask how he's doing now." Wen Tingwen sensed He Lin's coldness and shook her head, not wanting to impose. Truth be told, their relationship had never been particularly close, but since He Lin was her mother's best friend, she had offered some help after Wen Tingwen's parents passed away. It wasn't much. But the most precious thing is offering help in times of need. Although He Lin had concealed matters regarding Shen Qilin and Xu Jiatong, she had treated Wen Tingwen as her own daughter during their 5-year relationship, which is why Wen Tingwen didn't hold much resentment toward her. She just hadn't expected that her casual promise to Shen Qilin about visiting He Lin would come to pass under such circumstances. She's temporarily out of the critical phase. The doctor said that, barring any complications, she should wake up tomorrow. He Lin gazed at her son's pale face, her eyes filled with heartache, but when she turned to Wen Tingwen, her expression became complicated. She didn't know what emotions she should face Wen Tingwen with at this moment. After all, it was her and Shen Qilin who had wronged her in the first place. It was only natural for her to choose to leave, but as Shen Qilin's mother, she naturally leaned more toward her own son. During the period when Wen Tingwen first went abroad, Shen Qilin stayed at home all day, drunk and unconscious. Later, the incident with Xu Jiatong happened. He Lin never liked Xu Jiatong to begin with, thinking she was too calculating, and sure enough, she caused Shen Qilin to take a major fall because of her. He Lin blamed Xu Jiatong, blamed her own son for being unambitious, and also blamed Wen Tingwen. She felt that Wen had been so heartless, not only leaving without a word but also refusing to leave Shen Qilin even a sliver of hope. So, He Lin allowed Xu Jiatong to stay by his side, thinking, perhaps if he got what he wanted, Shen Qilin would return to his former confident and spirited self. Later, although Shen Qilin didn't end up with Xu Jiatong, he did gradually get back on track. Yet, at this very moment, when Tingwen returned to the country, she stirred up his heart and now has him lying unconscious in a hospital bed. Reason told He Lin that the real culprit was Xu Jiatong, but emotionally, she couldn't completely absolve Wen Tingwen of responsibility in this matter. Finally, He Lin sighed and looked at her. "Considering how well I treated you in the past, could I ask you for a favor?" She was stunned for a moment but quickly regained her composure. "Auntie, please go ahead. Auntie begs you, can you please not see him again in the future, if something like this happens a few more times? My heart really won't be able to take it." He Lin's eyes were sincere, almost as if she were about to kneel before Wen Wen. Though Wen Wen wanted to say that whether she and Shen Qilin met or not didn't depend on her but on Shen Qilin, seeing He Lin's exhausted expression, she didn't know how to respond. A mocking laugh came from the doorway, followed by Xiao Youjuan's merciless words, "Auntie, if you want my girlfriend to stop seeing your son, it's simple, just keep your son in check and make sure he stops bothering my girlfriend." Chapter 21. As the words fell, Xiao Yujun had already stepped into the ward, firmly pulling Wen Tingwen into his embrace, his protective stance unmistakable, being shielded so openly in front of elders. Wen Tingwen blushed instantly. She looked up at him and whispered, "I told you to wait outside, didn't I? Why did you come in?" He lowered his head and saw her flushed cheeks, which instantly stirred his restless thoughts. Unable to resist, he pressed a kiss to her lips, then quickly grasped Wen Tingwen's wrist before she could reach out to pinch the flesh at his waist. Clearing his throat lightly, he said, "I noticed you hadn't come out for a while, so I came to check. I didn't expect to walk in and see someone emotionally blackmailing you." Xiao Youjuan's final remark, which almost called names outright, made He Lin blush with embarrassment, but what surprised her even more was their relationship. Were Wen Tingwen and this man already dating? As this thought crossed He Lin's mind, her disdain for her own son grew even stronger. "You didn't cherish it yourself, drove people away, and then started to miss them endlessly. Clinging desperately even though Wen Tingwen already has a boyfriend, not caring about anything else." The words left her speechless, but after all, the one lying on the bed was her own son. In the end, she forced a smile and said, I'll be careful. The conversation ended, and when Tingwen no longer felt like staying, she took Xiao Youjuan's hand and walked out. They walked without stopping until they left the hospital. Suddenly, Xiao Yujuan halted, causing Wen Tingwen to stop as well. She turned her head and looked at him curiously. What's wrong? Nothing. Just that my girlfriend is too charming. It's giving me a bit of a headache. He feigned a sigh, speaking again before she could get flustered and angry. Girlfriend, when are you planning to promote me to a higher rank? When Wan was taken aback for a moment, then blushed slightly. Depends on my mood. Whenever I'm in a good mood, I'll promote you. So when will Wanwen be in a better mood? Sensing the playful tone in her words, Xiao Yujun couldn't help but press on shamelessly. Forgetting that his initial intention was just to tease Wan and cheer her up, she gave him a reproachful look but still didn't provide a definite answer. It depends on your performance. When Shinchalin woke up, it was already the evening of the third day. It was a bit later than the doctor had predicted. Lin was so nervous that she almost pressed the call button every half hour. In the end, it was only after the doctor repeatedly assured her that his vital signs were all normal and that he would be fine that she became less anxious. But the doctor was also understanding, as the stab wound was close to the chest cavity. If the perpetrator's original target had been slightly shorter than Shinchalin, the knife could have directly pierced his heart. Moreover, since there were no doctors at the crime scene to provide immediate treatment, Shinchalin was rushed to the hospital for emergency care and nearly received a critical condition notice. Fortunately, he was tough enough to survive the surgery, and his vital signs remained stable post-operation. Although he woke up a bit later than expected, he was ultimately out of danger. However, after regaining consciousness, Shinchalin only glanced around briefly. When he saw only Lin, he asked about Wen. Upon learning that she had only visited once on the first day and then left, he showed no further reaction. At first, Lin didn't pay much attention. It was normal to feel weak after waking from a serious injury. But as days passed and he remained in that half-dead state, Lin began to panic. Qi Lin, what's wrong with you? Don't scare your mother like this. Chapter 22. Just as Helen was anxiously about to press the call button again, her hand was suddenly grabbed. She looked down and saw Shinchalin's hopeful eyes. Mom, can you help me? As soon as these words were spoken, Helen felt a vague sense of foreboding, and his next words only confirmed her suspicions. Mom, can you ask Wanwan to come see me? You were always so good to her before. She'd definitely listen to you. Upon hearing it was because of this matter, Helen felt a surge of anger and outright refused him. No, Chalene, that's all in the past now. Why not just let it go? She's moved on with her new life, and you should start yours too. Weren't you the one who didn't like her back then? There are plenty of other women in this world. Why torture yourself like this? Her words were sincere, hoping Shinchalin would heed her advice and let go of the past. Back when Shinchalin was heartbroken over Xu Jiatong, she had managed to help him move on and accept someone else. Helen believed she could do the same now. Given enough time, Shinchalin would eventually have the day when he could let go of Wen Tingwen. Yet he shook his head, shedding tears in front of Lin for the first time, and pleaded with her. Mom, I can't forget her. Without her, I would die. Even when Lin told him that Wen Tingwen, apart from bringing Xiao Yujun to see him once on the first day, had never shown any concern for his condition again, Shinchalin still did not regret taking that knife for her. As painful as the dagger was when it pierced his chest, that was how relieved he felt. Fortunately, it was him who took that knife, not Wen Tingwen. Moreover, Shinchalin wanted to believe that no matter how much she might have disliked seeing him before, given Wen Tingwen's character, she would never be so heartless as to just glance at him once without even confirming whether he had regained consciousness and was out of danger. And since she acted this way, there could only be one reason. Lin must have told her there was no need to visit him again. Lin thought his feelings for Wen Tingwen were the same as those for Xu Jiatong, that as long as they didn't meet, he would eventually let go one day. But Shinchalin knew deep down that it wasn't the case. People say that in life and death moments, one's true feelings become clearest, and in that moment, Shinchalin was utterly certain. He loved Wen Tingwen, unafraid of life or death. This was a feeling he had never experienced, not even when he was with Xu Jiatong. He would never forget Wen Tingwen, nor could he ever let her go. Her name was already carved into his bones. Unforgettable for a lifetime. He only knew that without Wen Tingwen, he would die, but looking at Shen Qilin in this state, Lin could only feel anger at his lack of resolve. Shen Qilin, wake up, she already has a boyfriend. Even if you meet, what difference would it make? She and her boyfriend are deeply in love. She won't turn back for you. Lin's words failed to bring Shen Qilin to his senses. He still looked at her with pleading eyes. Mom, just this once. Let me see her, just once. She steeled her heart, refusing to look or listen to his pleas, silently locked in a stalemate with him, while he merely repeated the same words over and over. They were both gambling, betting on who would yield first, and in the end, the one who got their way was Shen Qilin. Lin didn't know Wenwan's address, so she could only intercept her at her workplace. Chapter 23. Lin had tried to find her several times but failed until the third day when Wen Tingwen passed by the front desk. The receptionist finally seized the opportunity to inform her that a woman surnamed He had been looking for her over the past few days. The woman surnamed He. Wen Tingwen quickly realized it must be Lin. However, hearing that she had been searching for her for 3 consecutive days, she felt somewhat puzzled. She hadn't gone to see Shen Qilin, so why would Lin come looking for her? The answer soon presented itself. Seeing Lin's face filled with guilt, Wen Tingwen didn't bother with pleasantries and got straight to the point. Auntie, what brings you here to see me? Can you go see Lin? He's not doing well. Seeing that she skipped any small talk and went straight to the point, Lin realized she had probably guessed that this visit was about Shen Qilin, so she didn't hide it either. But after saying this, she quickly added, Ting Wn, I know what I said last time was a bit too much. I apologize. Please don't hold it against me. Just this once, just once, and I promise I'll never trouble you again. Lin had thought that after apologizing, Wen Tingwen would let go of the past incident and naturally agree to see Shen Qilin. To her surprise, Wen simply shook her head. Auntie, the request to stop seeing him came from you. I agreed back then, and I intend to keep my word. Even without that agreement, I don't have much time lately anyway. Lin's expression stiffened slightly. Upon hearing her last sentence, she instinctively responded, Is there something going on? Wen Tingwen smiled faintly, a look of happiness appearing on her face, and the warmth in her eyes deepened. Yujun proposed to me. We've been busy preparing for the engagement recently. The answer struck like a bolt from the blue. Lin hadn't expected their relationship to progress so quickly. She naturally didn't know that Shen Qilin, after 5 years of dating, had never once thought of giving Wen Tingwen a wedding. Yet for Xiao Yujun, it was something he wished he could give her even sooner. He pursued Wen Tingwen for 2 years, dated her for another 2, and only proposed in the 3rd year because, when they first got together, she had once told him that she had given up her dreams for someone once before and didn't want to abandon them again for anyone. He never looked down on her family background. The Qiao family, as the top elite, didn't need their descendants' marriages to secure their business. When it came to choosing Qiao Youjuan's wife, they valued character far more than lineage. As for Wen Tingwen's wish to focus on her career first, they never raised any objections. When she could stand by his side through her own abilities, they wished for her to become even stronger than anyone else. Wen Tingwen spent 5 years successfully establishing herself in the jewelry design industry, building her own reputation. Now, when people mention her, they speak of her career and capabilities rather than the title of the girlfriend of the eldest son of the Qiao family. She finally has plans to take the next step, and what he needed to do was, at this very moment, present everything he wanted to give her right before Wen Tingwen, after 2 knocks sounded at the door. The meeting room door was pushed open, and Xiao Youjuan's voice followed at the entrance. He lifted the insulated lunchbox in his hand and gave her a gentle smile. Fiancé, how much longer do you need? I've brought you some food, almost done. When Wn smiled back at him, gesturing for him to come sit beside her before turning back to Lin. Auntie, is there anything else? Chapter 24. Lin seemed hesitant to speak, but ultimately shook her head. You guys eat first, today. Just pretend I wasn't here. With that, she didn't wait for Wen and Xiao Yujun to respond. Immediately standing up and heading toward the door, Only after Lin's figure had completely disappeared did Xiao Yujun casually ask, "What did she come here for?" When Tingwen took the lunchbox he handed over, and seeing him trying so hard to appear indifferent, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Without holding back, she even embellished the story a bit and spilled everything. It wasn't until she noticed the growing jealousy on his face that she finally stopped teasing him and reassured him. "Alright, I didn't even agree to meet him. What's there to be jealous about?" To her surprise, Xiao Yujun suddenly perked up at these words. "Why not meet him? Not only should you go, but I'm coming too." Perfect timing. Our engagement party is coming up soon, isn't it, Wanwan? Let's go together to deliver the invitation to him, just a moment ago. When Tingwen was still wondering when he had become so generous, until she heard his next sentence and finally understood what he was really thinking. But who could blame her for spoiling him? If he wanted to go, then so be it. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, when Tingwen and Xiao Yujun arrived at Shenqilin's hospital room together, as she pushed the door open, when Tingwen locked eyes with Shenqilin, who had just looked up, in an instant, she saw delight flash in his gaze. When Lin returned, she didn't tell Shenqilin that when Tingwen was about to get engaged to Xiao Yujun, she only mentioned that she still hadn't seen Wen Tingwen today. Shenqilin had thought he wouldn't get to see her again today, but unexpectedly, the surprise arrived so suddenly, before he could even feel happy. In a place he hadn't noticed, Lin's expression had already darkened. Compared to their sudden arrival, Lin would have preferred them to stay absent, just as they had told her earlier that day. After all, when someone who had said they wouldn't come in the afternoon suddenly appeared, and with Xiao Yujun no less, there could only be one remaining possibility. They weren't here to see Shenqilin. Sure enough, after exchanging a few brief pleasantries, they quickly got to the point. "We came to see you today because there's actually one more thing." Before Lin could even stop him, Xiao Yujun had already taken out an invitation and handed it to Shenqilin. "In 5 days. It will be Wanwan's and my engagement banquet. Here's the invitation. You're welcome to attend." His smile was perfectly polite, but Shenqilin's expression cracked piece by piece. Soon, his smile could no longer be maintained. "Are you two getting engaged?" This time, it was Wen Tingwen who answered, "Yes, although we didn't part on the best terms before, after my parents passed away, it was thanks to Auntie's help. Even if we can't be husband and wife, in my heart, you will always be family. I would be very happy if you could come," a phrase that will always be. My family struck Shenqilin's heart like a heavy hammer. Just family. He stared blankly as Wen Tingwen's lips kept moving, but suddenly, a buzzing sound filled his ears. An intense pain spread from his chest to his entire body, as if countless steel needles were piercing every inch of his skin, engulfing him in endless darkness. The sound of speech grew fainter and fainter until it completely vanished. Finally, even his consciousness faded away entirely. "Doctor, doctor." Lin's panicked cries echoed through the hospital room. In the next moment, Wen Tingwen and Xiao Yujun, along with the invitation they had brought, were all ushered out of the ward. Chapter 25. As Wen Tingwen walked out of the hospital, she couldn't help but glance back with concern, her gaze lingering in the direction of Shenqilin's ward. "He won't actually be in any real trouble, will he? Was what we did a bit too much? After all, he was the one who had saved her life. If their actions had caused him any harm, she couldn't shake off the guilt weighing on her conscience." Although Wen Tingwen hadn't expected Shenqilin's mental resilience to be so weak. If Shenqilin were to suffer any consequences because of their words, she couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. Xiao Yujun patted her head reassuringly, his expression also turning serious. "Don't worry, it won't happen. I've already called for the best doctor." Shenqilin was truly fortunate. That fainting episode not only caused him no harm but also helped dispel the pent-up frustration in his heart. Truly a blessing in disguise. 3 days after he woke up, Xu Jiatong's sentence was also announced. 3 years of imprisonment. However, due to the discovery of her pregnancy, the sentence was commuted to probation. After being released from detention, Xu Jiatong moved into the Shen family home. Xu Jiatong thought the Shen family had finally accepted her, but little did she know she had merely stepped from one cage into another. She used the child to pressure Shanchalene into hastily obtaining a marriage certificate. There were no blessings, no wedding. Only the outcome of him leaving her alone at the Civil Affairs Office right after getting the marriage certificate on the day they registered. Time quickly arrived at the day of Wen Tingwen and Xiao Youjuan's engagement banquet. The engagement banquet was entirely arranged by the Qiao family and held at the most luxurious hotel in the capital. Although it was just an engagement, the Qiao family took it very seriously. At the banquet, all the guests were dressed in suits and ties. Toasting and mingling. The bride's side only had a few colleagues from DW Company and her close friends, while most of the attendees were invited by the Qiao family. Watching the Qiao family and their guests exchanging congratulations, Wen Tingwen felt both happiness and helplessness. Uncle Qiao invited so many people. Will our wedding be like this too? Xiao Youjuan's eyes were filled with joyful amusement as he explained to Wen Tingwen while teasing her. The large crowd is certainly because they value you. That's how wealthy families are. The more they value someone, the more people they invite to make it lively. It seems my fiancé is really looking forward to our wedding. Already thinking about it now. I should tell my father to hurry up and put the wedding on the agenda. Xiao Youjuan's earlier remark had surprised Wen Wanwan. She hadn't expected wealthy families to also care about having a lively crowd. But his next words immediately made her blush again. You're teasing me again. If you keep this up, I won't talk to you anymore. Seeing her gesture as if to leave, Xiao Youjuan quickly begged for mercy. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Wanwan, you can't leave. What will we do about the engagement banquet without its leading lady? Amid their playful banter and scuffling, neither noticed the figure sitting in a corner of the banquet hall, pale-faced yet straining to appear spirited. This was none other than Shanchalene, who had insisted on attending the engagement party straight after being discharged from the hospital. Despite He Lin's objections, the engagement banquet invitation was later picked up by him again. Even if he couldn't marry Wen Tingwen, he still wanted to witness her happiness with his own eyes. Today, he deliberately wore his most expensive and luxurious suit. To an uninformed observer, it might seem as though he were the protagonist of this engagement banquet. Wanwan, today I attended your engagement banquet in my finest attire, pretending that I had already married you. In this life, we were destined to meet but not to be together. May we become husband and wife in our next life. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.